The NHL Trade Deadline is where legacies are made and franchises are transformed overnight. Every February, general managers across the league face career-defining decisions as the clock ticks down. They'll mortgage draft picks, prospects, and roster players, sometimes years of careful team building, all for a shot at hockey's ultimate prize. The pressure to make the right call is immense. One trade can launch a dynasty or set a franchise back half a decade. From dynasty makers to cup-winning rentals, these 5 trades didn't just change teams, they changed NHL history. Before we dive in, what do you think was the most impactful deadline deal ever made? Was it the veteran who delivered Carolina their first cup? Or maybe the missing piece that launched the Islanders' four-peat? Drop your take in the comments below and let's get started. Coming in at number 5, a trade that flew under the radar but earned a place in Stanley Cup history. In 2006, the Carolina Hurricanes acquired Mark Recchi from Pittsburgh for Niklas Nordgren, Christopher Kalanos, and a second-round pick. Now, at first glance, it seemed like a routine veteran pickup, but Recchi's impact would prove anything but routine. The numbers tell the story: 13 points in 19 regular season games after the trade. Then the playoffs arrived, and Recchi elevated his game, getting 16 points across 25 high-stakes matchups, including 5 crucial goals. But his value went beyond just the score sheet, because in the locker room, Recchi's championship experience steadied a franchise hunting their first-ever Stanley Cup. That's exactly what they got. Carolina rode Recchi's veteran leadership and clutch scoring all the way to the franchise's first championship. While blockbuster deadline deals grab headlines, Recchi's acquisition proves that sometimes the most impactful trades are the ones that fill specific needs at exactly the right moment. The Hurricanes didn't need another superstar. They needed a battle-tested veteran who knew how to win when it mattered most. In Mark Recchi, they found exactly that. At number 4, we have one of the most dramatic rental player sagas in NHL history. In 2008, the Pittsburgh Penguins made a bold move to acquire Marian Hossa and Pascal Dupuis from the Atlanta Thrashers. The cost was pretty steep: Armstrong, Christensen, Esposito, and a first-round pick. But the Penguins had Sidney Crosby in his prime and needed an elite scoring winger to chase the cup. Hossa delivered exactly as planned. He dominated the 2008 playoffs with 12 goals and 26 points in 20 games, driving Pittsburgh to the Stanley Cup final. The Penguins looked poised to start a dynasty until they ran into the Detroit Red Wings, who ended their championship dreams. Then came the twist that no one saw coming. That summer, Hossa stunned the hockey world by signing with the team that had just beaten him, the Detroit Red Wings. His reasoning was simple. He thought Detroit offered the best chance at a championship. But hockey has a way of writing its own stories. The following spring, Hossa and the Red Wings made it back to the final, only to face the Pittsburgh Penguins. And this time, his former team got the last laugh, defeating Detroit and winning the cup that had eluded them for years before. It was a stark reminder that in hockey, the perfect plan on paper doesn't always translate to success on ice. Number 3 brings us to one of hockey's most powerful moments: the Ray Bourque trade of 2000. After 21 seasons as a Boston Bruins legend, Bourque had accomplished everything except hoisting the Stanley Cup. The Bruins, facing a rebuild, sent Bourque and Andreychuk to Colorado for Ralston, Grenier, and Paulson, and a first-round pick. The Avalanche, already loaded with stars like Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, and Patrick Roy, gave Bourque his best shot at a championship. In 2001, at age 40, Bourque's chase for the cup reached its final chapter. Colorado powered through the playoffs and clinched the championship in Game 7 against New Jersey. What followed became one of hockey's defining moments. Captain Joe Sakic, instead of taking his traditional lap with the cup, immediately handed it to Bourque. The sight of the 22-year veteran finally lifting the Stanley Cup produced an emotional peak rarely matched in sports. Bourque's trade and subsequent cup victory didn't just complete his Hall of Fame resume, it gave the NHL one of its most authentic celebrations of what the Stanley Cup represents. Without this trade, one of hockey's greatest defensemen might have finished his career without the sport's ultimate prize, leaving a void in an otherwise perfect legacy. At number 2, we turn to a 91 trade that transformed a talented team into a dynasty. The Penguins, despite having Lemieux and Jagr, needed more than star power to win championships. They found their answer in Ron Francis and Ulf Samuelsson from the Hartford Whalers, sending Cullen, Parker, and Zalapsky the other way. Francis brought exactly what Pittsburgh needed: elite two-way play that balanced their offensive firepower. His ability to control both ends of the ice freed up Lemieux and Jagr to focus on what they did best, scoring goals. Meanwhile, Samuelsson added a physical edge that made opponents think twice about challenging the Penguins' skilled players. The results were immediate and decisive. The Penguins captured back-to-back Stanley Cups in '91 and '92, with Francis playing a pivotal role in both championships. While Lemieux and Jagr grabbed headlines, Francis quietly became one of hockey's most complete players. His consistency and tactical awareness made Pittsburgh nearly impossible to match up against. And by the end of his career, Francis had established himself as one of the NHL's most underrated superstars, proving that the right trade at the deadline can turn potential into championships. At number 1, we arrive at the trade that launched the NHL's last great dynasty. In 1980, the New York Islanders acquired Butch Goring from the Los Angeles Kings for Harris and Lewis, and what followed redefined what was possible in professional sports. The Islanders were already strong, but Goring's arrival turned them unstoppable. His two-way game perfectly complemented their roster, providing crucial defensive support while contributing key offensive plays. The results were immediate. The Islanders won the Stanley Cup that same season. But they weren't done. They won it again in '81, with Goring claiming the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. Then they won in '82, and again in '83. 4 consecutive Stanley Cups, a feat no professional sports team has matched since. Goring's acquisition stands as the quintessential deadline deal: the right player at the right time, elevating a good team to legendary status. Without this trade, the Islanders might have remained only contenders. Instead, they became the measuring stick for every dynasty that followed. When we talk about deadline trades that changed hockey history, this isn't just number 1, it's in a category all its own. Every year, the NHL Trade Deadline brings surprises. Some of them led to dynasties, like Butch Goring transforming the Islanders into a 4-time champion. Others end in heartbreak, with teams mortgaging their future for a shot that never materializes. These 5 trades reshape the NHL, but they're not the only ones that matter. Which deadline deal do you think had the biggest impact in hockey history? Maybe it's one we covered, or perhaps there's another trade that deserves recognition. Share your pick in the comments below, and let us know your favorite deadline deal that didn't make our list. If you enjoyed this breakdown of hockey history, hit subscribe for more NHL content and ring that bell to stay updated so you don't miss a single video, and I'll see you in the next one.